Hey, ladies and gents, and welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. As always, I'm joined by Dom.
Hey, I am Dom, and I'm joining you.
And Jordan.
Who watches The Watchmen?
Who watches The Watchmen? It's episode 74, and it's basically going to be our Cuphead episode. We're going to be talking about that at the end of the show, because all of us played it. So I'm not going to touch on that too much here at the beginning, but as far as everything else I played, it was a busy week. I was planning on playing Tacoma, Jordan, and then I ended up getting my hands on
I've heard that
this,
one before.
I ended up getting my hands on this neat little new piece of hardware called a Nintendo Switch. So I'm an official Nintendo Switch owner, which is awesome. I've joined the cult. So first off, I played Destiny 2. We'll talk about it when you get into it, Jordan. I don't want to touch too much on that. I didn't really do anything important or interesting. But on the Switch, so I've played about 2.5 to 3 hours of SteamWorld Dig 2. Loving that game a lot. Like, it's just one of those games. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Are you guys familiar with SteamWorld Dig?
Yes.
Yeah, it's basically like people have been calling it like partially Metroidvania, which is like 40% true. It's a game where there's a town hub above you, and your goal is to go underground, dig stuff, find certain like quest-based like areas, but dig minerals, kill enemies, go back up to the top, sell all of your resources, buy new stuff, gear, equipment, upgrades, and it's a repeat process. You open up new areas, you get new abilities. So that's where the Metroidvania stuff kind of comes in, because you get new abilities and you open up new areas, and it's just a very simple gameplay
Loop.
I'm brain farting. Gameplay loop, yeah. It's very enjoyable, very fun. I love the art style. I believe that's one of the things that's really hit or miss for people with this game. The art style is like kind of odd-worldy, I think is the best way to describe it. It's very unique. Really enjoying it. Nothing much to say there. The other game I've been playing, not too much of actually, is Breath of the Wild. I'm only at the part where you talk to the king on top of the tower when you're about to leave the Greater Plateau.
So you completed the tutorial section, though?
Essentially, yeah. One thing I will say...
you were waiting on Zelda.
Well, I was, but then I got it as a birthday present. So I personally...
okay.
Yeah, so I got it as a birthday present. So I'm not going to complain. Yeah. So, and I actually got a physical. It was one of those things where it's like, oh, cool, because they asked me, you want a physical or digital? I was like, I don't have a cart in it. Might as well, you know what I mean, have one in there.
Yeah. You like me, the one cart.
Exactly. So, I don't have any impressions really, because I've only played the tutorial. But one thing I will say is that I will give it credit that it does look prettier playing it, like, in person than it's ever looked online for me. I always thought it looked decent, but I do think it looks prettier holding it in your own hands than it ever has online for me. As far as the gameplay and stuff, like I said, it's initial thoughts. It's pretty much what I expected. Nothing mind-blowing, but I'm only an hour and a half into the game, if that. So nothing much to report on there. Played Cuphead, like I said.
You know what? Just call us back when you have all the Korok seeds, and then you can talk about this game.
Oh, okay, and then I'll be qualified.
Yeah.
I also picked up Shovel Knight because it's a new piece of hardware, so I had to get Shovel Knight again. Playing through that.
It's a good deal with all them expansions.
Exactly, yeah.
So is that like a rite of passage for every piece of hardware you get? You gotta buy Shovel Knight?
It's just like, yeah, it's if Shovel Knight's available and I want to buy. I love Shovel Knight. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Shout out to Jakob Games. And that's pretty much it. The biggest time sink for me, I think, this week was probably Cuphead. So obviously we're going to talk about that later. And I'm pretty sure that's everything I've played. Didn't watch anything, didn't read anything of point or purpose. What about you guys?
I played more Dishonored, Death of the Outsider.
Did you beat it?
Oh, yeah.
We're getting close.
I beat it like twice now.
Oh,
Had to get both endings.
Jesus.
And I'm playing it. I'm going back now, collecting all the paintings are the main collectibles. I'm grabbing all those.
Cool.
And then I'll go back one more time after that and do the undetected playthrough.
The super stealth playthrough.
It's a short game.
Oh,
I mean,
boy.
you could... the first time I played through it, it was probably closer to 10 hours. I was taking my time. But if you wanted to just breeze through it, like, I'll probably, for my undetected playthrough, I'll do the bare minimum, just so it's easier to, not get detected.
But you're comfortable with
I
it too, right? So, like, anytime you have a little bit of free
yeah.
time, you're like, I already know this game. I could just hop in and get a little bit more done,
right?
Which is really comforting. Yeah.
Because it's short, and I know the missions and what I have to do and where I have to go at this point. I'm really coming in. I'm like, oh, that would be such a bitch to play this whole game, not even getting detected. But now I'm like, I can see why that would be really easy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I didn't realize. So when I talked about it last week, I kind of bagged on the game a little bit because there was so few abilities compared to the other games. They did something cool with the New Game Plus that I'm discovering. So the difficulty doesn't change or anything like that, at least not that they described. But what does change is you get 4 abilities from Dishonored 2 that
cool.
you didn't have in the regular, playthrough of Death of the Outsider. So that I thought was really cool. Like, oh, they are mixing that up a little bit.
So they make it refreshing. Yeah, there's like a point to play it again. Outside of like getting a different ending, you have new experiences you can try out with the new powers. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I didn't even know. I didn't even realize that. It was kind of like a cool, like, oh shoot, okay, that'll be cool. So
are you flirting with the plot at all? Are you thinking about it or?
Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. So that's I have to go grab all those paintings and then do the undetected playthrough, and then I'll have the platinum.
Ooh, hell yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm really close, and I don't predict it will take too much longer. So, it's getting better. It's getting better and better the more I play it too, which is interesting.
That's the sign of a good game.
Yep.
Yeah. Otherwise, I played a whole bunch of Cuphead too.
Holy shit! You've already got the sequel.
As
played a lot of Cuphead. Also,
yeah.
We'll talk about that a bit later. Spoilers. It doesn't suck.
Ooh, that could mean a
no. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like it's just straight up awesome. So we'll get into it.
Now you're fucking spoiling it, Dom.
Jordan.
So same as you guys. I played some Cuphead. We'll be talking about that later. And then as Jared mentioned, I jumped into Destiny this week. Finally pulled that trigger. And am enjoying it quite a bit. Have played probably about 15 hours or so. Mostly doing story stuff, but definitely played some Crucible and done some of the side quests. Crucible is a lot more fun than I would have anticipated. Of course, you guys know I'm really not usually into multiplayer, online at least. And I think it's just the 4-person squads makes it a lot easier to kind of be a part of the game, and the maps are a lot tighter, and it makes it just more fun in general because you're not searching so long to find somebody to shoot at, and then you're also just more engaged in the action, and it does make it easier to be involved as far as like getting kills and completing objectives with whatever scenario you're playing in. So I've actually enjoyed that more than I thought it would. But otherwise, just the game in general. Of course, the shooting's really tight. The visuals are fantastic. With the checkerboard 4K, it's really, really pretty. I found out that they're actually doing HDR post-release, so still waiting on that. That was a little bit upsetting because I could definitely... when you're used to playing certain games in HDR, it is kind of like you want to expect it, and you want to just like get those vivid colors up in there.
Yeah.
Soak your eyeballs in them, I guess. But other than that, it is a really beautiful game, and I can certainly tell the difference of it not being on last-gen consoles at all. The level of detail, especially a little bit farther off, is really impressive.
What class are you?
So I play as a warlock. That's how I played Destiny 1.
Cool.
That's how I play Destiny 2. I just like their vibe. If I started a second character, it'd definitely be a hunter. I probably... unless I just got super fucking into it, I probably wouldn't play as a Titan just because that's not how I...
That's my main.
I just don't think I would enjoy it as much. I like the more speedy, stealthy characters. And for the Warlock specifically, I like their, kind of magical powers, I guess.
I hate their jump. That's my only I love the Warlock's abilities. I really don't like their jump, personally. It's like one of my biggest gripes with the Warlock class. It's good if you like it, and it's terrible if you hate it. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of the jumps are, like, manageable, but, like, God, that Warlock jump is very frustrating sometimes.
What do you mean by jump? Like the physical pressing X button?
Yeah, like so each character has different jump mechanics. So the hunter is just a straight up jump and then a double jump and then has a triple jump. So there's no like fluff to it, right?
Yeah.
The Titan jump is basically it propels you in the direction you're going and it's always vertically up. The Warlock jump is a 50-50 split if it propels you up and then it leans you down to the drop. And the Warlock jump is useful for distance, but it's not very good for precision jumping. So it's for me, it's for a lot of the people in Destiny, they talk about the Warlock jump being the worst one because a lot of people relate it to like the raid or like PvP where the mobility is the biggest thing. But in like story mode and stuff like that, I think the Warlock jump has a lot of benefits because it's the easiest for crossing like distances, which makes things a lot easier. I just don't like the 50-50 split of it pushing you forward and then easing you down. I just like straight jumps, you know. It's a very particular thing for me. It's a
I haven't noticed that. I think part of the reason is because in Destiny you have the boost or the jetpack type deal, where you can double tap X and then you're gliding through the air, and so I'm using that a lot more than I would just the single jump.
No. I'm talking about that specific ability, the double tapping. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the glide is. I mean, you get 3 choices. I don't know if it's different with the other characters, but you get a choice between 3 different ones. And I've gotten to the point now where I've just chosen the balanced, where it doesn't. It's not about speed and it's not about direction. It's about a little bit of both. So it hasn't been something that I've has been irking me or nagging at me.
What part of the story are you at?
So I am. Let's see.
Spoilers, by the way.
Well, I mean, I don't have to. I really don't have to spoil anything. I think I'm just about. I had to up a couple levels to get ready to go to the next planet. Let's see. I've done.
Nessus or Io?
I'm just about to go to Io. I just finished
cool.
the Cade 6 mission.
Okay, so you're about 65% through the campaign, I would say. Right. 65-70.
I figured as such because I'm right now I'm level 13.
Yeah.
And 20 is the cap, so I figured it would be right about there. And I'm enjoying the story. I thought it started off a lot stronger than it has progressed into what it is now.
Yeah.
The opening level, man, that stuff is just great. The opening gameplay is really good, and then the opening cutscenes are really good, and then it kind of just petered out for me. I wasn't nearly as interested. I'm not nearly as interested now as I was earlier, but it is certainly more interesting than Destiny 1. It is certainly more engaging than that, and the characters that you're trying to, the everyone knows that the Traveler has been fucked over, and now shit's just boned basically, and so you're trying to put it all back together is the best way to put it simply. So you're kind of like trying to get the band back together in a sense. So yeah, it's definitely better than Destiny 1, but it is not necessarily what I had hoped or the expectations that I had for it. But it's an improvement, so that's good. And then just the general experience is an improvement. I think that there's plenty of quality of life stuff that I would be upset if they didn't have. And then there's, like I was saying earlier, there's the visual upgrades that couldn't be there otherwise because the other games were on the old systems. So there's certain things where I definitely get why it needs to be Destiny 2. At the same time, I can also get people, especially big Destiny players, being upset that it feels kind of like 1.5 in a way.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I've been getting the urge to play it when I'm not playing it at certain times, not constantly, but definitely getting that urge. So I'd definitely say I'm enjoying it quite a bit. Don't know if I would say I'm in love with it, but definitely enjoying it quite a bit more than Destiny 1, and I plan on playing it a bit after level cap and after the story. and then I do plan on probably playing the expansions. So it's hooked me more than Destiny 1 did in that sense. Besides that, mostly just went back and forth between that and Cuphead, and then last night I rewatched Blade Runner, and then the shorts leading up to Blade Runner 2049. My favorite was Surprise Blackout 2022, which is the anime one done by the creator of Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo. And then I guess I've talked about Destiny for quite a bit, so I won't go into all the different anime I've been jumping around in. But I will say that I finished 91 Days, which is the one that was set during Prohibition, and enjoyed it quite a bit. I've realized that I've watched several sad or kind of depressing anime recently, and so this one was no different. It was pretty devastating by the end of it, what all went down. But it's certainly worth watching, and I really enjoyed it. So, yeah.
Also, shout out to the Destiny exclusive content on PlayStation going live for Xbox owners today from the first Destiny game. That's
That
great.
didn't take long.
Yeah, cool. Ton of people excited for that.
For Destiny 1?
Yeah, it finally came out on Xbox.
Oh, for Destiny 1?
Yeah, at this point, what's
What?
the point? You know?
That's goofy.
Like,
I have thought about...
People complain about
going
Tomb
back.
Raider. This is like next level. It's like
yeah.
yeah.
It's just
I've thought
stupid.
about
It's
going
just-
back, if I finish up this Destiny 2 campaign and still kind of have an itch, I might go back and get through the expansions on Destiny 1, because I have them available, but I haven't got around to them. So, I heard so much good about Taken King that I might end up going back. But if I understand correctly, Jared, unless I just found some really kind souls that were willing to go backwards with me online, I'm not going to be able to play those raids, right?
Yeah, you need to have people. But, I mean, there's diehard people in every community. Also,
Sure.
I think we come from I don't want to say, I hate using the word privileged, but like we do come from a very privileged perspective of there's still a ton of people who have 360s or Xbox Ones that haven't really bought Destiny 2 yet. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So-
Sure. I just kind of wish I could just get super over leveled and then go in and play by myself, even if
Yeah.
that might be near impossible. It would be nice to at least have the option,
There have been people who have soloed the raid, which is insane to me.
How do you do that? You just have people join you but don't shoot?
No, because in the first Destiny, and I could be wrong about this, not in Destiny 2, but in the first Destiny, I think you could just start the raid with as many people as possible in your party, 1 to 6. And
So you could do it. So it allows you to do it solo.
This was like guy ranked 1 in the world. This wasn't like Joe Schmo from off the street. This was like.
But I'm just saying it will allow you to jump in solo to that.
In the first
mission.
Destiny, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong about that, Jordan. Don't quote me on that.
But it won't even let you do that, even try in Destiny 2.
No, because I think they felt that it didn't navigate what they wanted out of the raid very well, and also they added in guided games. So now it's like, well, no, we don't want you to go in alone. We even built in a system to help you find people to play with. You know what I mean? Whereas in the first game, they're like, we can't hold you from not playing by yourself if we don't even give you the tools to have people.
Yeah.
So let's hop into the news real quick. 3 news stories, then we'll talk about Cuphead. The first news story here is pretty awesome if you're a fan of Ubisoft. Over at GameSpot, Eddie writes, Ubisoft continues to fight off Vivendi takeover. It's taking steps to stay independent. Ubisoft, the French publishing giant behind franchises like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, continues to take steps to protect itself from a hostile takeover by Vivendi. Today, Ubisoft announced that it has reached a deal with an investment services provider that would allow it to buy back up to 4 million shares by December 29th of 2017. He goes on to write, this means no one, Vivendi included, would be able to buy them. It also seems to mean that Vivendi's percentage of owned shares would increase, given there will be fewer outstanding shares if Ubisoft snaps them up. So, though they are getting more of the shares back, Vivendi will own a bigger percentage because there's less public shares available. Does that make sense? So if Ubisoft snaps them up, it'll at the going rate of 60 euros each a share. The figure would be around 240 million euros to get all of that back. This move comes after the latest combined general meeting for Ubisoft shareholders on September 22nd, in which 82% of shareholders weighed in, up from 76% last year. And according to Ubisoft, shareholders expressed their overwhelming support for Ubisoft's management and strategy by approving all ordinary resolutions on the agenda. This included the renewal of several board of director positions and appointment of 2 new independent directions. And it goes on to talk about those people. The last thing I wanted to talk about here was that they actually got denied. One of the other things they were trying was the ability for Ubisoft to give their employees shares, and that was denied. They weren't able to do that. I don't know if that has to do with the whole... what was the big thing that happened here in the United States, Dom, a while back? Remember the big thing that happened with the stock market?
Like Sarbanes-Oxley or whatever?
Yeah. I don't know if a lot of that has been...
No,
this is a fault from that.
You can still... I don't know about give, but most companies that I've ever heard of, they sell stock to their employees discounted. Okay. So, like, I bought my company stock, well below market value. And I would think that they should have no problem doing that, but, like, you still can't compel all your employees to buy back all that stock. That'd be tough to do.
And maybe there's
which is Pornhub, by the way. Dom works for Pornhub.
And maybe also it's a percentage thing. Like maybe if their employees already own a certain amount of stock, they can't give them more. You know what I mean? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's some weird stuff. Also, this is like Europe, so a completely set of standards there, business wise.
Good point. Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
So hopefully Ubisoft is still able to fight off Vivendi. We were talking about before the show. Dom was like, "Why are their shares so high? That's crazy." And then if you look into it,
€61.
Yeah, they've had a tremendous year with Ghost Recon Wildlands, For Honor. What other? Rainbow Six Siege keeps on ticking. They have Assassin's Creed coming out.
South Park,
Rabbids was a joint production with Nintendo.
True.
And that sold really well too. So Ubisoft is having a tremendous year.
Far Cry coming up.
Exactly, Far Cry early next year as well. So Ubisoft is on the up and up. Hopefully, I think for gamers, we don't really want to see Vivendi take over. So anytime we get a new story like this, it's good for us.
Vivendi is thirsty.
Yep. Somebody get that guy a water. The next story here comes by way of IGN. There's an updated PlayStation VR model that was announced. It's launching in Japan on October 14th and North America to follow. The biggest thing with this is that it's making some changes to the initial model that people had issues with. The HDMI pass-through, I think, was the biggest issue, right, Dom? HDR pass-through, sorry.
Yeah. So basically, with the existing model, you couldn't have your VR headset hooked up to your TV while also having HDR, right? Because your PSVR basically has like that processing unit is in between your console and the TV, like HDMI cord wise. But now you can just leave it all hooked up the way it is instead of having to unhook the HDMIs and push them back and everything. So
you were able to bypass it with third-party equipment, but it was and you could even do it really cheap, but it was still a nuisance.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, I think people have a thing where like they want to buy stuff official. Like not everybody's super comfortable with third-party stuff. So it's like, why should I have to go through a third party to jump to this hoop when Sony should be providing that solution?
Absolutely.
Also, the big thing to note here is that the processor units can't be exchanged between the two models, so they're not compatible. So unfortunately for the early adopters, you're going to have to buy a whole new PSVR model. You're getting shafted here, but that's the price you pay for early adoption, unfortunately. Not that it's a good thing, but it's kind of the risk you take. Yeah,
it's technology.
Just wait until like 18 months down the road when all three of us are getting shafted over buying Switches too early.
Oh, it's gonna happen.
They got some new feature or whatever.
Exactly, it happens, but that's the risk you got to take, man. Yeah, it's pretty much it. I don't think there's too much to say. Do neither of you own a PSVR? Does this tempt you guys at all? I doubt it, right? Maybe.
Dude, well, actually, yeah. This is a good push, a nudge for me in the direction of getting one because I have a 4K TV with HDR. Like, I would not have switched it back and forth. I just would not have done that. All the cords are behind my entertainment center. I would not have done that. That's just, and so I would have to make a tough choice. And this is like, a necessary adjustment for me to get one.
Absolutely.
I'm still not crossed that threshold that I'm going to buy one tomorrow, but this is definitely a step in that direction.
Yeah.
This makes it so that really the only thing holding me back is the games that are actually on the system. And I've, being such a big PlayStation fan, of course I've thought of it, like, should I get a VR? I could definitely afford it if I wanted to, but I just don't necessarily have there haven't been any games that have been like, damn, I really want to play that, especially since I've played Resident Evil 7 straight up, and it's like, that would probably be the biggest pull for me if it was an exclusive. So yeah, I'm getting closer to that point now, especially since, like I said, particularly recently, I've been pondering the thought of getting a VR more and more, especially because I'm just such a big tech guy in general that I enjoy being able to experience, kind of what the newest stuff is. Maybe not the most cutting edge, but at least what the latest and greatest experiences are in tech, 4K and HDR being one of those. So it's definitely put the thought further into my mind. But yeah, at this point, I'm still not seeing the games, because most of the games are a lot smaller experiences and are relatively expensive for the experience that you're getting. And on top of that, they're just not necessarily that interesting to me. They're not, that part's not pulling me in. And if that's not pulling me in, that's, really the thing that should be. That's, at the end of the day, that's what should be, kind of yanking my chain.
Well, yeah, I don't know for Dom, but for like me, an outsider looking in, the only game that would pull me in, like say this was, for instance, like an Xbox VR, is I like the Batman experience, Arkham VR. I think that looks really cool. Like, yeah. I think for a number of people who aren't just super willing to jump in, I think a lot of people are waiting for the price to go down, obviously, because it's still a steep price for a technology that isn't still super relevant yet, and the library, right? The library isn't deep. There isn't the must-have app on it. So I think this is interesting. Like you guys said, I think this is another step in the right direction. I'm interested to see what PlayStation's focus is at PSX this year on VR, and then obviously E3 next year. So yeah, they might be doubling down. So but speaking of PlayStation, there our second to last story, because I added something in that I completely forgot about, but I want to talk about. Andy House is leaving PlayStation, which is pretty interesting considering this is the week after we talked about Phil over at Xbox getting a promotion, and now we're talking about one of the big guys at PlayStation leaving. This comes by way of Rolling Stone. Sony Interactive Entertainment President and Global CEO Andrew House has stepped down from his role, Sony announced today, with John Codera taking on the position. House will remain with Sony Interactive Entertainment as chairman through the end of the year to ensure a smooth transition. According to the press release, it's unclear why House is leaving or where he is heading next. And then it goes into a quote of Andy House talking about his time with the company. The biggest thing here, Codera, the guy who's taking over, has also been appointed representative director and president of Sony Interactive Entertainment, effective immediately, while House has become director and chairman. Codera will assume overall operation responsibility for SIE, including its game and network services businesses globally, and will report directly to how do you say his name? Kaz Hirai? Kaz Hirai? Yeah.
Yep, you got it.
And the last thing here that I wanted to go into was Codera. He's been with Sony since 1992, and most recently he was engaged in the launch and enhancement of the network services via the PSN, which has some people worried because the PSN has a lot of issues. Obviously, it's not one guy's fault, but he was in charge of that, helped with the launch.
Yeah.
You guys are the PlayStation guys. I want to hear from you guys what this means to you. Obviously, this isn't, the sky is falling, but it is interesting, for somebody who's been at the company as long as they have, Andy House, to leave. So, what do you guys think?
Yeah, it's a shakeup. I don't think we'll notice any difference. I mean, from our perspective, nothing. I can't imagine they're going to change, their strategy at all. And as far as network services, you can look at it through the eye of, well, the PSN is kind of crappy and it's known for this and that, but when you take another step back and be like, in the past couple years, the PSN has actually gotten a whole lot better. Well, it's from a security standpoint, and they are slowly but surely adding features, and things are getting more stable. It's still not as good as it ought to be, but it's been improving.
I have a question
at a
for
steady
you.
Pace.
Have they improved? And this is like I've just read this, so I have no idea. Have they improved the download speeds for things? 'Cause
No.
wasn't that a problem? Isn't like the download speeds for PSN really bad?
It's not really bad. It's just not anywhere close to Xbox.
Yeah.
you know?
Okay.
And it's I can sit there and jump right back and forth, and obviously my connection isn't changing that much between few couple minutes or whatever, and I have really quick internet, and it's always quite a bit faster on Xbox, like a really decent amount. Even if I have either of the consoles hooked up to Ethernet, it's way faster on Xbox, sometimes 2 or 3 times as fast.
Well, and the thing too is like I agree with you, Dom, and people are saying this like there's not going to be any immediate effects of him leaving, considering he's going to be there till the end of the year. But people keep talking about like there will never be any effects. And I think that's a fallacy in and of itself, because he's going to, for better or worse, there's going to be things that he wants to implement, right? Like
okay, well, in the sense of you can't really tell. I don't think there's a big enough difference in these two guys that you'll be able to tell like, well, Andrew House would have done this differently.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You can't really make
like,
that,
Phil Spencer's seemed like, just when you see them, Phil Spencer seems completely different than Don Matrick, whereas these two guys kind of seem the
that's
same.
a fucking shakeup right there. Yeah, I don't think you'd see that difference. I think the biggest difference that we'll see is just the fact that you won't be seeing Andy House, presenting. You won't see his face up there on stage when we're watching the press conferences or whatever.
And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe this new guy doesn't want to be in front of the camera, and that can give light to all the other people that people like to see during E3, like Sean Layden and I'm losing his name. Shuhei Yoshida. I don't know. People are handling this weird, and they're thinking it's like terrible or if it's great, and I'm like, it is what it is. You know what I mean?
It's whatever.
Yeah, exactly. The change will be negligible when all is said and done. I hope, anyways. The last news story, and this is something I forgot about, but I wanted to talk with you guys about. Square Enix basically came out and talked about how they want to put more of a focus on multiplayer and service games going forward. I think they've seen the trend of Destiny and even like Ghost Recon Wildlands and all of these games, Rainbow Six Siege, all of these games that have this crazy life after the fact, and they're realizing that a lot of gamers are shifting more towards a multiplayer-centric focus, where they basically say that this is probably where the money is and this is where we want to focus. And this leads people to thinking about how possibly the next Final Fantasy coming out might be multiplayer focused, which, hold your breath, you're probably gonna have to wait like 10 years for the next one. But
didn't they try that?
They've had 2 MMOs.
Yeah. But I'm thinking more of like
14 is still a big deal.
Yeah, I think people are thinking more of like a. I guess Destiny is really the only thing of its kind that we have right now, like Destiny Anthem kind of thing. People are speculating where it's not necessarily an MMO, but it is like a multiplayer centric thing. It's like a console MMO essentially. That's what like
they're adding a pretty substantial multiplayer edition version to 15, where it's even going to have story implications, oddly enough. So that'll be a precursor to what is to come. That'll definitely give you a sense of what they're moving towards.
Well, and this now that we're looking back in hindsight, this lets us know like that's why we haven't really seen Tomb Raider much. That's why they kind of pushed pause on Deus Ex. They kind of let Hitman go by the wayside. None of those really speak towards multiplayer focus. And I don't know if you guys remember, but when the initial Avengers game was announced in the partnership with Marvel with Square Enix, we talked about this. We talked about all the possibilities of what that Marvel game could be, right? The Avengers game. And we were like, is it a single player? Is it a multiplayer? Is it going to be like Destiny but with superheroes? And like this is an interesting story because this kind of lends itself towards right? A Marvel game, an Avengers game in which it's a service where I'm assuming you would select a specific hero. I doubt they'd let you create a hero. You'd play as a specific hero. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that they said they wanted to focus on multiplayer and service games, and we know about that big Marvel deal. Like, do you guys think this is directly talking about that, or?
I mean, it could include that. I don't think that's the only thing. It definitely worries me, though, because I see the industry moving that way in general, and Square Enix is obviously not a small company.
Yeah.
So, being the single-player gamer that I am, obviously I'm not completely opposed to multiplayer experiences like I was just talking about with the Destiny Crucible, but single-player is certainly where I want to spend the majority of my time. And it's certainly pushed me away from games that, had they been just a smidge more in the direction of single player, that I might have picked up and played. It sucks that this kind of like is being semi-forced in a way where it's to me it's like this. I think that I'm not one that says. DLC is something that just gets, pulled out of the main game and held for an extra charge. I think that's, for the most part, story expansions and stuff are actually separate completely and are, created separately from most of the main stories. Some even being released completely separately, like Lost Legacy, Uncharted, for example. But I do think that there are instances, especially where we're at and where it looks like we're going with this story, where the devs and publishers will kind of scheme this to where they can set up a game to where the people will be continuously playing it and continuously paying for it in some instances, in a lot of instances, I should say, where they're not necessarily getting more content, they're just doing the same thing but in a different way, right?
Yeah.
And I think, Destiny is even an example of that, where you're not doing really anything different a lot of times, but you're paying for these extra things, whether it be microtransactions, like with Destiny shaders, or whether it be, not necessarily more story in a story expansion pack, but it is like, new challenge modes or something, where it really is, you're just doing the same thing, but like they made it harder, or they, gave you this modifier to where it feels a little bit different and you're coming about it a different way. So they're making less content, and they're being able to charge you and have you pay more for it and more often, more continuously. So that is what worries me about this situation. Not just the Square Enix, but where the industry is moving in general.
That's why I've been really strong on buying single player games, especially at release and so on. As I look back at the last bunch of games I bought, pretty much every Bethesda game as of late I bought day one, because they've been the publisher that hasn't shown any signs of going in that direction.
Yeah,
I mean, they pushed Elder Scrolls Online for some time, but they didn't. That wasn't in spite of their other properties.
Right, that's a totally separate thing. You're still getting your main Elder Scrolls.
Exactly. Game. Whereas with Square Enix, you're seeing them put to bed for at least some time. Like you said, Jared, Deus Ex, Tomb Raider, Hitman. Maybe not Tomb Raider,
but instead of saying, this Final Fantasy online game is going to be, subtitled something separate. No, it's a, 14, it's an 11, it's part of the main series.
I think the only thing, though, that we can bring from this that might be, like, in the opposite direction of this is that, like, historically, Square Enix isn't a company that makes the best decisions. They're not necessarily
very good point.
They're not necessarily on the pulse of the industry a lot of the time. And I out of everybody who's shifting towards this, I could easily see Squaresoft doing it the worst.
Sure.
Just because they have a track record, and I know people love Squaresoft and they love Square Enix now.
Enix.
Yeah. And they love to talk about like the history and everything like that, but if you just look at their track record, they don't have a very good track record in terms of, like I said, being on the pulse. But I do think that it is worrisome for somebody like you who maybe isn't a fan of multiplayer games, but I do think in a lot of ways the market will always speak, and we will have the single player experiences. And as long as we keep seeing these PlayStation exclusives come out and sell like gangbusters, and people keep clamoring for the single player experiences, I think they'll be there. I think this will just be I think the problem is, how would I word this? I think the problem is a lot of these companies are talking about this as if this is the next evolution of gaming, whereas for me personally, I think this is just a new genre that's emerging in video games. But all these companies are acting. Let me finish real quick. All these companies are acting as if it's the next thing in gaming. You know what I mean? I think they're seeing it as where all games should go, whereas for me, I just think it's a new genre that's emerging. So I think a lot of these companies are going to shift towards making these service games, and there's going to be too many on the market, and people are going to choose which ones they want to play, and all these other companies are going to see...
The pendulum will swing back.
Exactly, and I think it'll ultimately, the dust will settle, and it'll be a genre of game, not so much the future of gaming. What I mean?
Not a takeover, but sitting next to.
But there could be a couple of years there where we're getting all these service games, and it is kind of bullshit, and it's over-flooded, and... the market will choose what they want to play, and these companies will retract and realize, oh, we messed up. I think that's the issue. I think it's a disconnect between publishers and what is exactly happening. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just my take on it. I do agree with you that it is worrisome because, like with indie games, I got really mad that PlayStation didn't showcase indie games during their conference. I think you need to be able to provide games for each type of person. You need to have your single player experiences, you need to have your multiplayer stuff, you need to have your indie stuff, and we could see a point in the next couple of years where these E3s are heavily filled with these multiplayer experiences, and there's some single player stuff sprinkled in, and hopefully the market speaks correctly and we kind of weed it out to show that the entirety of the gaming sector, or at least the majority, isn't these multiplayer focused people. So I don't know, it's interesting.
I think that, you were saying that the companies are looking at this as the next evolution in gaming or evolution of genres, and I really see it as the evolution of a new way for them to make money.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like you said, there's plenty of single-player experiences that are selling quite a bit, but once you sell that single-player experience and maybe a couple of, DLC packs, story expansions, you're not continuously making money off of that. You're not able to charge. It's much more difficult to go into a single player game and charge microtransactions, as we've seen with the Shadow of War stuff, even going back to like Metal Gear Solid 5. If it's not traditionally thought of as a multiplayer experience, then people are much less they're much less likely to be positive about these microtransactions in their games, especially when you're, a traditionally single player gamer. And so if you're setting it up as a multiplayer experience, people are going to be much easier. They're going to go along much easier with these microtransactions and such, and that allows you to continuously charge them.
Yeah, so you're saying they have like an inherent advantage of being able to get more sales out of each dollar spent on development, right?
Yeah.
Than a single player game could.
Right.
And that just means that we have to buy that many more single player games to make up for that disadvantage, right?
And hope that people...
Which is not the way it should be.
Well, and hope that the majority of people will see through predatory actions in games, right?
Right.
And that's
bite back at that trend.
That's the positive and negative of the market speaking, in which, like, it's kind of worrisome because, as much as people talk about, like, oh, I don't want this to happen, there's 10 other people that are like, I just want more of this game, here's my money, the whales and stuff just pouring money into these things and showing these companies like, well, look at it, we have a progression in revenue here, yada, yada, yada. And it's just because, a lot of times there's, like, a small group of people that spend so much money. I have an old friend that spent over $200 on Clash of Clans, which is insane to me.
Yeah. See, you can't blame it all on the developers and publishers because there's adult human beings out there that are willing to spend, basically, let's just say console.
Yeah, we're driving
not
it.
even like
Yeah.
Not even Clash of Clans. There's people that are willing to spend 3 games worth of money, let's say $180, which is like 3 $60 games on a single game. And like I said, they're not getting anything new as far as like gameplay experiences. They're just getting new, like, visual content packs and stuff like that. So that is really unfortunate that people are allowing themselves to be taken advantage in that way, and they are absolutely the ones that are driving this more than the publishers and developers themselves, because they're just going with what is popular at the moment and what is making the most money. So there's something to be said for the actual consumer who's putting us in that position as well.
Also, there's this really frustrating thing too with some people, especially in the video game realm, that have this idea, and we've talked about this at length, so we don't need to get into it, but they basically equal amount of hours you can play in a game to value. Like, sure. I'll have people who, like, I played through Resident Evil 7, and my friend was like, oh, that game's only, like, 6 to 8 hours. It's not even worth $60. And to me, I'm like, oh, I spent $60 on it. It was more than worth my time with it. I loved Resident Evil 7. And yet he's addicted to the Walking Dead TV show. And to me, I'm like half of that show is filler. You're willing to, like, waste your time on not good stuff. You know, I'm just talking about, to make my point. To waste...
You're making sense.
Yeah, it's like... Just because something's longer or you have more time with it doesn't necessarily mean it's better. And that's what's frustrating. And yeah, I do hope that this is a trend that backfires on these companies. Even if, this is the wave and people love multiplayer games and we're in the minority. I play multiplayer games, but I do love single player. I do think we'll see the situation of oversaturation, and people will realize that people aren't willing to play everything. We saw it in a tiny little vacuum with Battleborn and Overwatch. Those were just 2 games released, and Battleborn released too close to Overwatch, and it disappeared into the fold. So I even think that could happen next fall and I don't think Borderlands 3 is coming out next fall by any means, but some people think it might. If that comes out next to Anthem, though they are different games, like Borderlands 3 could definitely be lost in the fold there. You know what I mean?
Who knows?
Yeah. So. I want to go to a better subject, a more optimistic subject. Cuphead. I'll start off. We all played Cuphead. I think there was a lot of trepidatious thought going into the release of this game because it's been 2.5 years-ish since we first heard about this game. People were worried that it was just a boss rush game. We eventually saw the platforming elements, and a lot of people were worried that they weren't very well done. The initial, I don't know if you guys remember the initial reveal of the platform levels, but they were like super zoomed in. It was like super zoomed in on the camera. There was very little movement area on the screen. A lot of people were worried. Game eventually came out. MDHR released this game. 14 people worked on this game, which I think is utterly astounding considering the quality I found in this game. I'm going to talk about my impressions, and then everyone can have their turn. I love this game. I was going to make a joke at the beginning of the show, and I forgot to. I was going to say that I played Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Cuphead, and one of them is in the running currently for Game of the Year for me. I absolutely love Cuphead.
And the other one is Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. For me, I think this game is fantastic. I'm only finished with Isle 2. I haven't even touched Isle 3 yet, so I haven't finished the game. For me, it's one of those games that the difficulty doesn't bother me because I feel like a lot of times when I die, it's my mistake, and it's a very rewarding game. When you beat a boss, I feel that the sense of accomplishment is something that I don't get in a lot of other games outside of like Dark Souls or stuff like that. It's difficult, so it's like Dark Souls. That's a joke, by the way. I love the art style. One of my biggest worries was that the art style was going to sell this game and it was going to be lackluster in terms of gameplay. I love the gameplay. I think it's very tight. I'm very particular with my platformers. I enjoy it a lot. It's interesting because it's hard to nail down the genre of this game. I wouldn't consider 100% a platformer because there's not a whole lot of platforming elements. The running gun...
It's an action game, right?
Yeah, an action game, a shoot 'em up. It's a very difficult game to put in a box because it has elements of a lot of different types of games, but it doesn't fully dive in on one, Like I said, I love the variation of bosses. I love the different mechanics in the game. I think there's a decent amount of items. I don't think it's overwhelming by any means. I like that there's the overmap is cool because there's shortcuts in the overmap, and you can get around areas without having to beat levels. I love the different varying weapons. I guess that's just my initial thoughts. I don't want to go too long, and I want to hear what you guys have to say, and we can kind of go round robin and talk with each other. So, what do you guys think of Cuphead?
So off the bat, I'm with you pretty much completely. So what's interesting to me about it is, like you said, it's not just the art style. Like, there is an awesome game behind there. Yeah. But that being said, if this game just had a generic ass art style, then it wouldn't get a quarter of the attention that it's getting. So it needs all of it. Like, it's a whole package in that sense where That's what makes it truly great. Is it impresses on an art style level and a gameplay level. Then to kind of bounce off what you said about the difficulty being rewarding, but there's also something to the difficulty that no matter how many times you die, and you die often and over again against the same boss, but every single time, even after you've been trying for an hour and failing over and over, you don't stop wanting to try again.
Yeah, you're like, I was just that close. I just needed to do that. Yeah.
There's something to it where
especially with the
you don't get sick of it.
Progress bar when you die, you get the
exactly.
progress bar.
Yep.
Maybe that's part of it, because initially I thought, this is fucking stupid. You can't see the boss's health bar as you're doing it. I'm gonna hate that. But I think that plays into it, not being able to see it, but then also seeing the progress bar at the end after you die gives you a feeling of I think there's something there.
Yeah.
That's a really clever design, I think, and that's part of what keeps on pulling you back. So I played probably around 4 or 5 hours. I've gotten through the first world, and I'm doing everything. I'm not skipping a boss even when it lets you. Right, I'm doing everything.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Which sometimes that's not normal, or that's not necessarily typical of me. When you play Super Mario 64 and you can move on to the next world, even though there's some stars you didn't get. I'm moving the fuck on, right? I want to see the next thing. But this is I want to finish every last little bit. But yeah, I can't say enough about that. It just drives you. You keep dying over and over and over, but you just keep wanting to go back. And then when you do finally beat the boss, it's just just bliss.
Yeah. Well,
knockout.
I guess I'll talk about this after Jordan goes, because I want to hear Jordan's thoughts on it. I don't want to go too much on what I was going to say. You can go ahead, Jordan.
Are you good, Dom?
Yeah.
So, I guess the best way to start for me is I want to like Cuphead a lot more than I do. I want to love Cuphead. And I like Cuphead, but yeah, like I said, I certainly don't love it. Obviously, the art style is gorgeous, and the dedication to that style is probably one of the most amazing parts about it, where you have the crackling vinyl soundtrack and the popping and the lines across the screen like old film. Of course, for those that just don't even know, it looks like a very old color cartoon, maybe 30s or 40s era. And the dedication to that style is really quite endearing, I think. So I'm really enjoying that. Besides that, though, the gameplay is what's important in any video game to me. And I think that it's close but no dice in a lot of instances. I think that, for one, I would have appreciated them preparing us a little bit more for the difficulty of the game. I think it's okay to have a really difficult game. I mean, this game is absolutely tough as nails. It's not just difficult, The Witcher is a difficult game, and this game is tough as nails, just like Souls games are tough as nails, though they are difficult in different ways. I'm not comparing them directly in that sense. The issues that I have with it are that, like I said, not only did they not prepare us in general, but the game doesn't do a good job of preparing you. For instance...
I was going to say the opposite. That was the point I was going to make. I thought it prepares you very well.
So an example of what I'm talking about there is you get a decent amount of coins early on because you come upon this guy who gives you 3. You have a hit and run level early on. And so you have, I had 9 coins before I ever faced a boss. And so I go into the shop to buy power-ups, and I'm buying power-ups that I think are going to help me, do to the best of my ability, I guess is what I'm saying. And, it didn't prepare me for the fact that, for one, a lot of the buffs that I was putting on my character, you could only choose one of those. You essentially have a main...
I did the same thing.
A main gun that you can use. You have a secondary weapon that you can use, and then you also have a character buff that you can choose.
A charm.
Sure. It didn't let me know that... basically all the things that I was buying were in the same category as the buffs, the charms, as Jared mentioned, and that they were going, I would only be able to choose one at a time. So I spent pretty much all of my coins actually, I should say, on these buffs without powering up my weapons at all, which I totally would have done. And people, I think, will compare this plenty to the Souls series, which a lot of people like to say, oh, well, it doesn't really hold your hand at all. It just kind of drops you in there and lets you figure it out for your own. And I can really only attest to Bloodborne because I haven't really played much of the Dark Souls games, so I won't even go into that. But for Bloodborne, I know it at least gives you these tutorials where you're walking through the first area and it has all these prompts on the ground that, sure, you could ignore, but I think any gamer worth their salt is going to look at those and read what they say. And Cuphead has a tutorial where it teaches you how to perform the actions of the game, but it does not prepare you, in my opinion, on how to play the game, right? So it teaches you how to jump, how to parry, how to attack, how to dash. It basically teaches you what the buttons do, but it doesn't teach you how the game works, how you're going to encounter these situations, and what you should be prepared for. Whereas, in my opinion, something like Bloodborne does. It shows you, like, this is what you need to know. I guess that's the best and simplest way to put it, is this is what you need to know to be properly prepared to go into the situations you're about to enter into. And so that was my biggest issue, especially, like I said, since I've put all this in-game currency into this one system that is really not helping me at all where I'm at. And coins, now that also another thing is getting 9 coins before I ever face a boss, which the bosses are all over the place. It's most of this game. Getting 9 coins before I face the boss, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to be getting coins often enough. When you spend a fucking hour on a boss, time in and time out trying to beat them, you don't get any coins at the end of it. So it's, in my opinion, that's not very rewarding at all. I get where you guys are saying, oh, you kind of get this breath of fresh air after you finish a boss. But for me, I'm usually flipping off the screen with both hands because I just spent so damn long watching the same animations over again, listening to this song that I really liked when I first entered into the level, and now I'm kind of wanting to bash my brain into my television screen. And then, that's another thing, is the animation is so great, the art style is so great, but when I'm seeing the same thing over and over again, and especially when I'm almost going into this malaise where there's certain parts of the boss that I can get through really easily, but it's just this one part that's just fucking me over every time. And so I'm going into this malaise, and really just for parts of it, just watching the characters animate in the background. Like I said, at the beginning of it, I was really enjoying it. I thought, oh, this is cool. Oh, there's little flies in the frog's tugboat, which actually doesn't make any sense if you think about it. Why would a bunch of flies be hanging around these 2 frogs that's clearly about to eat them, and they're like sitting at this restaurant just waiting to get like gobbled up by these frogs? That's a side point, but I just noticed that once again because I was looking at them for so long. So it kind of turns you, at least for me, it turned me against the music and the art style and the announcer coming in with his 4 or 5 different quips, and I'm hearing them over and over and over and over again. With all that being said, I just feels like the developers didn't adequately prepare us, but then also the game itself doesn't adequately prepare you for the challenge that you're about to take on.
So, I have a couple of rebuttals. Also, I mean, every game isn't for everybody. People are going to have opinions. That's how it works.
Well, like I said at the beginning, I am enjoying it. I do like it, but I want to like it so much more. And I'm like on that precipice.
Yeah, there's something to be said about the tools that people put into games and the player. Like, a developer can never account for a random Joe Schmo playing their game. They don't know how they're going to take the game, right? That's why, like, QA and all that stuff's so interesting, because you can think, oh, we made this so clear, this person's easily going to walk through this, do this, and somebody grabs a controller, does something completely opposite of that, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. So the thing I want to say about the coin thing is you get those first 3 coins from the kid sitting on the bridge, those 3 coins. After you do that, the game prompts you and says you can visit the shop now to buy items to upgrade. So it gives you a prompt to go to the store after you get your first 3 coins, your initial 3 coins.
That wasn't my issue.
Yeah, so it was your choice to then play other levels and gain coins, so then you went to the shop with 9 coins, right? The reason it's designed... Well,
I got the 3 coins, and then I did the hit and run, but like I said, I went to the shop before I ever encountered the bosses.
Yeah. So the way they designed it is you get the first 3 coins, you prompt them to check out the store, they check out the store, they set up the shop in a way that you can only buy a couple of items with the 3 coins. You would buy the 3 coins, then it prompts you to equip stuff. You would equip something. So it does show you how to do that properly, and it would teach you how to only equip one thing and show you that it only equips one thing. The fact of the matter is you played it differently, which is not your fault, but you got those 9 coins, you went to the shop, you bought multiple items, then you realize that not every item can be equipped. So I don't think it's the developer's fault for that.
So let me give you the next scenario, because I can't even claim that much. I guess I'm just wasn't paying attention, because I took the 3 coins, went to the shop, bought one thing, right? Played the hit and run, came back with 5 more coins, and then bought a bunch more charms. I didn't realize I was buying more charms, or I guess I wasn't paying attention. Maybe it said it up there, and then went and tried to equip them, and I'm like, oh, I had then I was at the same dilemma. But I guess I wasn't paying enough attention when I first equipped the first one, and I didn't realize and then I didn't realize in the shop that I was buying more charms. I thought I don't know what the fuck I thought. I don't know, but I was left in the same spot of shoot, I would have bought something else if I realized whatever.
To your point, Jared, there's something to be said for the fact that just the actual physical presence of these things. The boy is at the end of the bridge. As soon as you step off the bridge, the first hit and run is right there on your left, and then you take a couple more steps, and then the store is on your right. So for me, it was just the logical progression of the boy, the hit and run, and then the shop.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
I just felt like I kind of wasted all those coins, and they could have done a better job of explaining this will do this. The charms go in this category. The attacks go in attack 1 or attack 2, and that could have been part of the tutorial before you ever even touch a coin, because you take this tutorial and it's like that doesn't allow for the you did it out of order, or you didn't realize, because the tutorial, you have to do it when you have to do it, and you're locked into it, and I don't understand why that wouldn't have been in the tutorial to begin with.
Yeah, the only point I was making is that after you talk to the kid and you get the 3 coins, they prompt you to go to the store, and they kind of set it up for you to buy that item and figure out, I only have one spot. I'm not saying what you did is wrong. I was just making a counterpoint to that.
No, it's a good point, because things, especially in the way we play a lot of open world games now, stuff can just be done out of order, and it can get
exactly.
And I'm sure from a developer standpoint, it's like, man, we got to try to guide them in this way, otherwise they could get screwed, and it's kind of on us. So I totally get where you're coming from.
What I want to say is, so this is MDHR's first game. It was 14 people. The animation is
and
really...
it feels that way.
Yeah, and the animation is impressive. People don't understand how painstakingly hard the process is of making that type of animation is. All of that stuff's hand-drawn. Very impressive. What I will say is, for a game that looks like they probably spent a majority of their time working on the art, I think they nailed the gameplay for being their first game. I do think there is a lot of area for improvement, and I do think a lot of your concerns are hold some weight. I don't think you're just making problems out of thin air or anything like that. I understand where you're coming from.
Sure.
I guess just people play games differently. So for me, I didn't really encounter those problems. That's not how I went about things. So I didn't really have that experience. Maybe if I did, I would be sitting here with you, chiming the same tune. But yeah, I love this game personally. For me, I'm excited to see how well it's selling. Obviously, we don't have the numbers for console, but on Steam, it sold 250,000 copies.
It seems like very popular across the industry,
which I think is great, because these people worked really hard on it. I want to see a sequel or something else from the studio, because I do think they're talented, and with the game under their belt, hopefully they can fix issues that way. Like you said, it's hard for a developer to account for every different possibility, and for a first-time dev team, I think they did do a really good job. Yes, there are areas where they can fix it, like you said, but I am excited to see where they go from here. Another thing I wanted to talk about, people have been having this conjecture of I can't wait for this to come to PS4. The developers themselves, MDHR, have come out and stated this will never come anywhere else.
Which really fucking sucks when you think about it, because it's doing this well and it's this popular without it being on the most popular console in the world. So you think about how much more they could be selling, and that really kind of saddens me for them in a way. And I didn't even need them to say that. I mean, Microsoft funded this game, so
exactly,
it'd be a Mass Effect trilogy collection type deal if it ever did, which is very much slim to none. So I think I do also think, though, that you're definitely going to get an expansion to this. I can see it with the way the islands are set up and stuff like that. It's like all you got to do is throw another one in there.
So to that point, I do have to point out, because this is for PC and they're making a Mac version soon. I think there's a lot of misconception that pretty much I'm willing to say, like, if your PC runs Windows 10, it can definitely play this game.
Yeah, I don't think this is a very taxing game yet.
Yeah, the PC requirements are extremely low. So if you bought a laptop in the last, handful of years, it can certainly run this game. It's Windows 10 being the prerequisite, which if you didn't have Windows 10, there was a free upgrade. So if you missed that, then that's your fault.
Also, fun fact, there's as many hand-drawn frames as this as a full feature-length animated film. So yeah, it's very impressive.
Surprise me.
Exactly. It does suck, but I do think this is a good thing for Xbox. In a year where there's so many questions about Xbox this, Xbox that, I think this was a real hit. This game.
They need this.
Yeah, this game wouldn't have happened without Microsoft. They helped fund this game to what it was. The developers put a second mortgage on their house. I'm glad that they're seeing success.
Jesus.
Yeah, in order to develop this game, before Microsoft jumped in, they put a second mortgage on their house because they wanted to make this game. That's how passionate they were about bringing this to fruition, which is really cool.
Good for them.
Yeah, I think before we close out the show, we're all up and up on Cuphead. Obviously, Jordan, you have some gripes on it, which is perfectly fine.
I would like to make one other point, if you don't mind, Jared.
Okay.
I think there's something to be said with this difficulty. Like I said, I consider it to be tough as nails. And I do have, I express my qualms about the way in which that difficulty is presented to you. But one thing I definitely get the vibe of is the difficulty partially is padding for the game. I think that there's plenty of content in the game, and you were describing, the amount of animated frames in it.
Yeah.
But you can definitely tell that, like, if you're not spending an hour on each of these bosses, you're probably going to get through this game quite a bit quicker. And even though it's only $20, I could see people saying, oh, there's not enough content, this, that, and the other. So there's parts in the game where I'm like, yeah, there's plenty of bosses, plenty of hit and runs, I'm sure, by the end of it. But, you're spending a lot of times in these single screen encounters where you're really just running, in this one square. The screen doesn't really move at all. And so it's really just the animation happening in the background and then what you're doing with the boss that you've encountered. So I definitely think there's something to be said for the fact that, you got to admit that part of this is padding.
Well, I think it's a byproduct of the animation. Sorry, go ahead, Dom.
No, because that's a good point, but it's by design too. So I think it's totally valid, because if you look at Dark Souls and Bloodborne, those worlds are really not very big at all. They're kind of small and narrow. And if you were to just run end to end through any of those games, it would only take you a few minutes, right? But you're spending a lot of time, dying and going back again and taking your time and
sure.
And so
every
on.
game
so
has padding.
Yeah.
Some more than others, but I do feel like it kind of sticks out to me in this game, because you are spending, you're spending sometimes hours on a single boss.
Yeah. I do think there's a conversation, too, that is a very divisive topic in which I forgot who it was. Somebody was tweeting about this, and they were talking about how one game dev felt that you need to make your games as accessible as possible to as many people as possible in terms of difficulty. And obviously there was an opposite side of that argument of like, no, if a dev wants to make their game difficult, it's their right to do so. They shouldn't have to adhere to the lowest common denominator, which I agree with. I think that,
I do too.
Yeah, I think if you want your game to be difficult, let it be difficult. There's no need to have an easy mode in there. It's up to the developer and people.
Which they do, by the way.
Yeah, they do have an easy mode.
Every time you jump into a level, it says you want to do. It's called simple or regular, and it's kind of like. They're not like straight up putting people down, but I definitely feel like, I don't want to pick the simple version. I want to play, and it's not even, easy or hard. It's the regular version is the one that's tough as nails. So, I'm obviously choosing the regular version because I don't want to be sitting here playing a gimped version.
Really cool thing, there's a lot of hidden unlockables in this game. If you go through all of the run and guns pacifist style without killing a single enemy, you unlock black and white mode. So it looks like classic Steamboat Willie. There's like a bunch of different things you can unlock, which is really cool. But I think that's it for episode 74. Hopping into what we're going to be playing and everything. Going to be playing more Zelda, more SteamWorld Dig 2, more Cuphead. I'm not finished with that, obviously. Going to be renting Blade Runner Perfect Cut on YouTube. Final Cut, sorry. You can rent it for like $3. So I'm going to watch that, watch all the shorts, even though I've already watched the Dave Bautista one. And then watch the movie this weekend. Like I said, I have no nostalgia for Blade Runner. I've never seen it, whatever. I've heard some people say that it holds up. I've heard other people say that it doesn't by any means. So it's
it definitely holds up, but it's a movie that can be, I have no idea what you'll think of it, but it's a movie that's not like, it's definitely not the most accessible movie out there.
I'm going in with the open mind.
Be in the mindset. Yeah.
I love sci-fi and stuff, so I'm just going in there with an open mind. We'll see if I like it or not. Either way, whether I like the old Blade Runner or not won't change the fact that I'm going to watch the new one this weekend. So it's going to be interesting.
Whatever the opposite is for a shout out, because I watched the on the Warner Brothers YouTube channel, I watched the 2 live action shorts that are for Blade Runner 2049. Really poor quality, a lot of pixelation on the video, and then the audio quality was damn near abysmal. So, and this, it's not just them. I see all the time where like big companies, they'll upload music videos or just videos, whatever in general, and it doesn't help that the YouTube bit rate isn't great. Sorry, this is a fucking tangent, but yeah, it's just sad to see when like a big company who should have the production down pat is like uploading shitty quality video.
Yeah. Also, shout out to them releasing another Thor Ragnarok trailer, and they're releasing another Justice League trailer. Like, really? Those movies are right around the corner. It's insane. Not watching either of those. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Blade Runner and all the games I've been playing. What about you guys?
Dishonored.
And more Cuphead?
Jeez.
You didn't say how
this
far
is Dom's
are you
new
on Cuphead?
Skyrim. I've completed the first world entirely.
The first isle? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you're in the theme park area now, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm on like the cupcake lady or whatever the hell she is.
It has one of those bosses in that area. I don't want to spoil it if Jordan hasn't gotten there. One of those bosses in that area is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. It's very, very good art, but it's weird and freaky looking. Yeah.
I haven't gotten to that one yet then.
Yeah.
Real quick, what do you guys think about the parry? Because I feel like the timing is weird on the parry. I feel like it says you're supposed to jump, and then when you get to the pink thing that you're parrying, then you press the jump button again. I feel like it's early. Like you're supposed to hit the button earlier than you think you should.
Yeah,
so
in
my opinion.
I agreed with you. I was with you 100%. I just couldn't get it. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, this feels a little off. I went and did that little ghost level where basically all you're doing is parrying, and by the end of that, I was like, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are really helpful too. I'll give it to them because those levels really help you with parrying, Dom. I had the same issue. I couldn't figure it out, and then the mausoleum. I did the mausoleum thing with parrying the ghosts, and I'm good now.
I'm not having trouble with it. I'm just, every time I'm doing it, I'm having to like remind myself to do it just a tiny bit early. But I will say, any game, and even Bloodborne's like this, any game with a parry, the parry almost never feels right to me. It's like always just the timing is like, this doesn't feel right? This is not how it, this is not like the button timing that I think you're asking me to do. So
you always expect it to be like a lot more accurate, and it's a little bit earlier than you anticipate. I agree with you.
Yeah. Rarely a parry in a game, even Witcher. It's like the parry. It's just like you want me to go just a little earlier than I think I need to go, and so it's really hard to train your brain to do that.
Are you done, Dom? Is that everything? Death the Outsider, and I asked you about Cuphead, so.
Yeah, Cuphead and Mugman. Don't forget about Mugman.
And Mugman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your boy Mugman. Also weird that when you respawn, he drinks out of his own head. Really weird. Yeah.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, Mugman will pull down his straw and drink out of his own head.
Drink his own brains.
Terrifying, yeah. Jordan, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that I'm definitely going to be playing more Destiny. I will be getting to Cuphead, but the thing with me in Cuphead is that I'm going to just start playing it in smaller bursts. I'm really going to be like jumping in for a boss and then jumping back out. So I might be a long time before I complete this game. I absolutely intend to complete it at some point, but it's one of those things. And there's shows that I have this with, other games where I'm like, I like this, but I have to do it. Comics, especially, there's certain comics like I like it, but I have to do it in short bursts or it just doesn't sit right with me. So Cuphead is definitely one of those things. That's how I'll be playing it in the future. I am, as far as my progress, I've made it past the vegetable patch bosses. I did the big blue guy, the blue blob guy.
Oh, the Dragon Quest slime? That's what I called him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he kind of looks like that. And then I've done the frogs as well. So Pretty early,
So-
and haven't even finished the first world.
Really quick, you talked about the frogs being in there. My personal context, my personal lore for that is that there's some like rough and tumble fighter guys, right? So to me,
Yeah,
if you're at a
boxers.
bar and you want to watch tough dudes beat the hell out of each other, well, what's terrifying and tough to a fly? A frog, you know? So they would watch frogs beat
Yeah,
each other
but
up.
like when you are going to a rough and tumble spot to watch some rough and tumble,
You don't
guys,
think they're
you're
going to
not,
eat
like,
you. You're not
They're
there.
not your predators.
Yeah.
It's like
It's a cartoon,
It's like
but
if
that was
like
my-
it's like if a bunch of mice were hanging out at a bar run by tough ass cats.
Where
you know?
cats
It's
are
like,
fighting.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I don't. You guys are about to get chomped.
It
you know?
could be
So
some
they're
weird
just-
thing too, where like the flies are actually in charge and like they have a system to deal with the frogs, and the frogs are actually their prisoners and they fight for them.
Or they're just like they're masochistic as hell.
Yeah,
They're just,
exactly.
Like, they want to be eaten.
So,
they
basically-
want to be tortured and have their
Exactly.
wings pulled
Basically,
off.
we're gonna write a cartoon.
Exactly.
Is that
Exactly.
what? That's what happened.
It would be dope if we got like a Cuphead cartoon that wasn't anything to do with like
yeah.
it didn't have gameplay elements. It was just like
Oh.
a short or maybe a mini series, Netflix series. Even
Yeah, I was gonna say Netflix is calling.
I really want to. Speaking of that, I really want a movie, an animated movie with the styling of the beginning of Sonic Mania. I love that art style at the beginning of Sonic Mania when they show the little like animated short with the characters. I don't know if you guys have seen
Yeah.
it or not. Oh, it looks so
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
I would love to see a Sonic movie, which I never thought I would say. But
So I should probably say at this point what I'm going to be doing this week.
Yeah.
So of course I am just about to go. As soon as we hop off here, I'm about to go to Blade Runner 2049.
hell yeah.
So super excited about that. I love Blade Runner. Obviously, you guys know how much I am into cyberpunk, and Blade Runner is, basically the biggest cyberpunk movie of all time, and definitely one of the most influential pieces of cyberpunk media there has ever been. I mean, Blade Runner is just really influential, period, for all different kinds of, it's influenced anime and video games and obviously like TVs, comics, stuff like that. So very, very cool property, and I'm glad to see it coming back. I'm glad to see it being taken care of by Denis Villeneuve, who is a very capable director. One of my favorite in Hollywood right now, has directed such classics as Sicario and Arrival, I should say. And he's also going to be the one taking over the Dune property coming up soon. So I'm really glad to see that Blade Runner is getting the treatment that it deserves, and now hopefully Dune will be as well.
His DP is
I like
really
to
good
say-
too, isn't he?
Well, I know, yeah. I don't know who that is specifically, but I do know that his movies are extremely well shot.
Here, I'll Google it while you keep going about what you're going to be doing. Sorry.
So I like to say to myself, in Denis we trust, because he's handling these tough properties with Blade Runner and Dune coming up. So in Denis we trust, indeed. Other than that,
Roger Deakins is the name of the DP.
Roger Deakins, shout the fuck out to that dude.
He did Sicario. He did No Country for Old Men. He has a pretty good track record. So,
Have you guys seen Sicario?
no, it's on my list of movies I need to get to. Movies I missed and I'm ashamed of.
Dominic?
No.
Absolutely, unequivocally, as soon as you possibly can, watch Sicario. Watch Sicario. My girl Emily Blunt's in there. Like, fucking do that shit. It is an incredible, incredible film. Sicario.
It was on Netflix too, I think, for a while. I don't know if it's still on there.
Yeah, I have no idea about
Yeah.
that, but it is absolutely worth a watch, even if you got to pay for it, track it down, what the fuck ever. I mean, it's on digital HD, I'm sure. But anyways, besides that, like I said, I finished 91 Days. So I'll probably be jumping into some new anime. I won't bore you with those details. But I'm excited to finish up Destiny and see kind of what the end game feels like, because obviously a lot of people are talking about that. That's really kind of where people go when they're really into Destiny. They're talking about the end game stuff. They're not really talking about your first 20 levels. So I'm actually planning on jumping back into the Crucible some more, and then doing some strikes and some raids. And well, I guess there's just the one raid, but I'll probably jump into the raid and have to do that with other people. But yeah, I'm excited to see how connected I still am to Destiny once I finish that campaign and get to level 20. Also, could we go ahead and get the HDR patch? Because I'm ready, man. It's like a month after release. I think it's about time, Bungie,
Yeah.
please. So, yeah.
You were talking about Blade Runner and Cyberpunk, obviously. I don't remember if you ever said you were going to eventually get to it. Do you have any plans of playing Observer?
I've played it.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember
I,
if you bought it or not. My bad. It's just one of those things.
Yeah,
so funny, I can't remember.
So we'll talk about this real quick for a sec. Observer's really cool because just talking about the influence of Blade Runner. Observer stars Rutger Hauer, who is the main replicant, the main android in the movie Blade Runner. So it's like clearly this European studio was like, dude, we fucking love this shit. We love Blade Runner. We love cyberpunk. Like, let's get one of the cyberpunk dudes, well-known cyberpunk dudes, and have him in here. He's over 70 at this point, and he's the main character that you play as in Observer.
Love
Observer is a cyberpunk. Yeah, he's got a really cool voice, really cool accent. Observer is this cyberpunk first-person horror where you're basically you're kind of a semi-cop. You're not like an actual cop, but you're uncovering this mystery of what happened to your son, and then it goes into these fucking just trippy as fuck, like dark trippy, not like happy trippy, like dark fucked up trippy shit that like these experiences that you're going through when you're like plugging into people's brains and observing, so I haven't finished it, but I have started it, and I meant to mention it, so I'm glad you brought it up, Jeremy.
Shout out to multiple endings too. Death of the Outsider and Observer has multiple endings, so
have you jumped into it at all?
I watched a gameplay playthrough because it's one of those games I was interested in, but I never thought I was going to get around to actually playing it. And Jesse Cox, who's this YouTuber that I really like, he played it with a group of people called the Scary Game Squad that he does videos with, and it's really funny. But fantastic game from what I saw. Awesome.
Love that first-person horror and love cyberpunk, so it's a really great marrying. And I think you can agree that like when he plugs into somebody, those trips that he goes on are fucking crazy dark shit.
I loved it though because
fucked up shit.
In a sense, it is kind of like, I know people hate the term, but like it's kind of like a horror walking sim in a lot of ways. But like I think the way they handle it is fantastic. Like that game's great. It's pretty much it for this week. The last thing I was going to say is that Pokemon I Choose You trailer looked cool. It's coming to select theaters next month, so I'm going to try to watch that too when it comes out. If you can, follow us on Twitter at CTRLINT. It's Controlled Interest Abbreviated. I'm at Jared _. Jordan is at Mellowmodus, and Dom is at Dom's Oreos. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. It helps. Even if you're not going to watch the video, please head on over and hit that red button and subscribe to us. As well, please follow us on iTunes if you aren't already, and if you are, go ahead and leave us a review. That definitely helps us out as well. And we'll catch you guys next week with episode 75. Bye.